You are listening to Smart Women's Dating Podcast, episode number 66. Welcome to Smart Women's Dating Podcast. I am your host, certified life coach Lærke Nielsen, and I help smart, independent women attract the love they deeply desire without having to chase or settle. This podcast will give you the mindset tools and insights you need to finally crack the code to your love life. Are you ready? Then let's go. Hey friend, and welcome to this episode. I'm so excited to bring you this because in this episode I have a conversation with a client of mine, and we'll call her A. And we have worked for about 4 months now, so we still have some time together. And what is so amazing about her story is that she met a partner in something like 4 weeks. She met a partner already there, and he ticked all the boxes and he has all the right signs, everything is good. And then you might think they lived happily ever after and there were no problems at all. But that is not the reality, because what happened then is that she experienced a lot of relationship anxiety. And what I think is so important to share in this episode, and the reason why I invited her to have this conversation with me, is that it's one thing to be dating, and that can trigger a lot of emotions in us that we are not normally exposed to in other contexts. And then another thing is to start a new relationship that can make some other things surface up and that we need to look at, such as the fear or the anxiety that the newly found love will all of a sudden leave us. Even if everything is going well, even if all the green flags are there, an anxious brain can interpret all this as the worst case. So, I want to invite you to listen in on her journey and how she managed to get rid of 80% of her anxiety. And I must say, I'm so proud of the work she's been doing, and I've been seeing her progress all the way through. So, listen to this chat. Welcome to my wonderful client here that has said yes to give this interview. And I'm so excited because I know a lot of the things you can share here, there will be women who really benefit from that. Maybe we can start by talking about how you found me to begin with and what made you decide to work with a coach, a dating coach.
Yeah, so I had found you first by listening to your podcast. I think I found podcast a bit accidentally. And at some point, you had an offer for a bonus call and just chat about the problem for about 30 minutes or so. And it was after that chat that I decided that I wanted to work with you because I felt that it helped a lot to feel better. And the effect that it had on me was immediate. I immediately felt a lot lighter and happier after our call.
We had a consult call. I remember actually you told me afterwards that you felt so much better already after this call. So I
Yes.
also felt that you were very open to receiving the tools and the mindset shifts and so on. Sometimes when we are really motivated, it lands just the way it's supposed to land and you get the transformations quickly. When you started working with me, it's now like around 4 months ago. What was your situation? You were actively dating, or can you explain a little bit what was the situation in your life?
I had recently ended things with someone I was dating for a very short while. I was having a small heartbreak. I was still swiping on the apps and still trying to find new dates to go on to. So
Yeah.
that's where I was.
You had ended things with someone that you dated for how long did you date him?
I think it was about a month.
Yeah.
Like very short.
Yeah, so it was this kind of short dating relationship, but still we can feel very sad and we can have something, we need to process before we're really back in the game. And then relatively short after you met someone, I think you met someone like after 5 weeks or 5, 6 weeks.
Something like that, maybe even less. And I don't remember exactly, but it was very short after, few
Yeah.
weeks after.
And maybe you can share a little bit your reflections on what is it then that we've been working on? Because we tend to think that when we meet someone and everything develops in the way we want it to, and he ticks the boxes and all the green flags are there, we tend to think that everything is nice and there are no problems at all in our love life. But that is, of course, not true. The reality is different.
Yes, so my reality was very different than that. I met someone that I thought was very good for me as a person. Yes, he ticked all the boxes. I felt very good in his presence. He was very consistent in his communication. He was very mature and no red flags. Everything was very good. But still, my problems were a bit coming from my side because there is a set of problems until you find someone that you really would like to keep dating. And then when you meet someone, there's a different set of problems that you usually work on. And for me, it's a lot of anxiety that comes with a new relationship.
And what is this anxiety about?
I think it's related to my attachment style. So fear of being abandoned. I read a lot into things that maybe are not there, such as the way a person responds to a message once or another time, how they look at me one time or another time. Is there a difference? I look for a small sign that the person is about to leave. And I worry a lot about the future. I tend to think, okay, things are good now, but they can switch in an instant.
And what are the consequences of having all these thoughts and this anxiety, do you think?
There are a few, like not being present when something happens, or not being present, not only in the relationship in a way, but in other areas in life, because your mind is kind of preoccupied with what could happen. So just worrying makes you not present, I think. Enjoying a bit less the dating stages and the beginning, not being able to feel relaxed, be yourself.
So it's really very normal to have this dating anxiety or even anxiety in a relationship. And we become very alert and we look for all the signs that even they're not there, but we interpret as signs that maybe he's losing interest and so on. And so we just don't enjoy the relationship as much. And we also are not fully ourselves. We're not our good old confident self as we used to be when we had nothing to lose. The moment we feel like now I have something to lose, there's something at stake here, all of a sudden that calls up all the fear. It makes all this surface. And of course, that's an opportunity to look at all this and find ways to manage that. So maybe you can share some of the strategies or some of the mindset shift that you have been working on. And I know this is work in progress. So we're still working on this, but is there some of it that you want to share that you feel this has worked particularly good or this is something that feels useful?
We worked a lot on challenging the thoughts, challenging whether there is any facts to confirm my negative thoughts, but also making peace with the worst case scenario, knowing that if what I fear the most would happen, then I would be okay. Yes, I will be sad. I will be heartbroken. I will cry and so on.
Mm.
But I made the promise to myself that this time I will not let it mean anything about me
Mm.
and that I will take care of myself and do something for myself so that I have something positive to extract from that worst case scenario.
And we also thought about this thing that happens when we are in this anxious mindset where we put the other person on a pedestal and we kind of tell ourselves that I'm the lucky one. I get to date him and he's too good to be true. And where we sometimes need to just pull him down and also work on our thoughts about ourselves and see that, okay, I might be lucky here, but he is too. I'm amazing too. So why would I even worry about him leaving me? I mean, there's no guarantees, right? We cannot hang everything on this one hook that is, he's not going to leave me because we can never guarantee that. But at least we can say, why would I worry about that? And you seem to have a lot of concrete facts and a lot of his behavior that are pointing to the direction that he's not planning to leave. On the contrary, actually, the facts are actually showing something different.
Yes.
So where do you feel you are right now? Do you feel you are sort of managing this anxiety better?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
I actually manage it a lot better. I'm also a bit better to tap into it and realize it's just my anxiety. I even started to think, where did I pick up certain thoughts so that I can backtrack them to maybe previous experiences and see how they are different from what I experience now. So I think I'm much better. It still comes up at times, but I'm much better at managing it.
And we cannot ever get completely rid of anxiety or negative feelings in general. The art is to be able to manage it when we have it. It's not to get rid of it completely. So knowing how to react and becoming really good at observing your thoughts instead of being in the middle of them. And that is actually quite difficult with anxiety because it's such a strong feeling that it can be difficult to take a step away and look at it and just see, okay, it's my anxiety again. But I think you're becoming really good at it now, and we've done a lot of these exercises where you try to look at what is it that makes you feel that, what is it in his behavior that makes you think that there's something wrong, and what could be some other reasons that, for instance, if he hasn't answered a message, what could be some other reasons than him losing interest, which is the first thought that we have right when we're in this anxious state.
And all of those helped a lot, helped so much to get rid of the anxiety. And yes, it does come up and I cannot get rid of it completely, but I can always think what are some other options for whatever is happening. And realizing that I just give a certain meaning to a certain behavior or something that is being said, but it's just a meaning I make. It's not necessarily the truth.
You also talked about having realized that some of this is programmed back from previous relationships. And, when it's an attachment style, it's sometimes all the way back from childhood. So sometimes what we are experiencing in the moment is actually we're reacting on a trigger. And it's not really the situation in the moment. It's just that it's calling up something from the past that is like an instant response that we don't even have control over. But being able to recognize that this was a trigger and this other thing was real, but to see the difference is actually very important.
Yes. And then it was very important to have someone to talk about it with because it allowed me to never bring it to the relationship in that way. So there was no negative impact on the relationship. We did not have any arguments, which would have been so easy to have if I had this anxious behavior and I could have acted on it. No unnecessary drama just because I had someone to talk to and I had you to talk about it. So I didn't have to act on my triggers.
Mm.
I could kind of back off a bit, consult with someone that sees things from a different perspective. And then when I show up in the dating scenario, then I'm very calm and everything is just flowing and there's no unnecessary negativity coming in.
And how would that show up in the past? I don't know if you're willing to share some examples of how this negativity or anxiety could impact your relationship or how you showed up in the relationship.
I could be clingy or asking maybe for confirmation that the other person really feels the way they do, asking for validation, almost chasing a bit, or maybe giving ultimatums like, if you don't do this, then I'm leaving. So it can be in many ways that it can bring up unnecessary problems.
It's so interesting that you have these thoughts to begin with that what if he lose interest? What if he leaves me? Because already in the short time we worked together, you already showed yourself that if a relationship doesn't work out, you can find someone else because you did that relatively fast. And you have seen lots of evidence from the past that you can find a new partner. And still our brain goes to this. That's a big problem. And what if he lose interest and I'm going to be completely lost? It's the worst thing that can ever happen. So, what is your advice if you are speaking to women out there who have the same kind of dating anxiety or relationship anxiety, and you could give them one simple advice? What would you say then?
Not to make it sound like an commercial or advertising and so, but really asking for help, either from a coach or a therapist or a trusted friend, maybe. But I do think that a professional can see things differently than a friend. A friend might have maybe some outside perspective, but usually friends tend to think a bit similarly to the way we think. So I think a trained professional can help a lot. You have saved me in so many situations when I might have been like so many times when I thought, oh, now it's over. I'm sure no, he's not interested. He's especially after Christmas, I think, between Christmas and New Year. And then I had a session with you, and I was expecting you to tell me, oh, yeah, he's not doing what he should. He's not doing well. And you suddenly, was it that things seems to be really good.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I was like, yeah, actually.
Yeah.
So it made a huge impact because I had a completely different energy when I met him compared to what it would have been if I had been only in my head.
That's so good. I'm so glad that you say that. And I remember we looked at the facts, and I remember that I was like, but this is all really good. And I noticed you were not able to see it as clearly because you were very much in this anxious mindset. And how well do you feel now that you're managing it?
If I think that I didn't quite manage my anxiety when we started working, so I was managing 0% of my anxiety. Now maybe I'm managing 80%.
Oh, that's really good. I'm happy to hear that. And I think also in these situations where we want to reach out and consult with someone else, that is really good to have this app that I use with all my clients and where you can reach out anytime. You don't have to wait until the next session because even then, I mean, a week, it still can be a long time to wait if you have a high level of anxiety and you feel the need for some kind of support or just one question or something to shift around the way we think.
Yes, there were some situations when I felt very triggered and I knew that I was in my head and I couldn't get out of my negative spiral. So having that and asking for help and getting that help almost immediately was very good. Very, very good.
So the future now is to enjoy your new relationship and still keep looking at whatever comes up because we all have something that comes up in the beginning of a new relationship that is actually revealing a lot about our thoughts about ourselves and our ability to keep a relationship. It's not done with the time when we meet someone. There's a lot of new stuff that begins there. Thank you so
Yes.
much for sharing your journey and sharing so openly about your thoughts. I really appreciate that. And I know there are people out there who appreciate that as well.
Thank you.
So I hope this was useful to you. And before we stop this episode, I want to just do a quick recap of some of the tools that A used to manage her anxiety. The first one was to get really aware of her thoughts. Try to look at what is the meaning I give different behaviors that my partner has or different things he's saying. What is the meaning that I give to this and that creates my anxiety? So get really specific on the thoughts that you're having and then ask yourself, what else could his behavior mean? What are some other thoughts I could have about his behavior that doesn't make me feel anxiety and literally has nothing to do with me? And then another useful tool is to be very factual. Focus on what are the facts of the situation here. And in its extreme, you could say, well, the facts are he didn't leave me. We are still together and we do have a date next Saturday, for instance. So look at the facts. And here you could, of course, also include different behaviors that are aligned with what we want from an emotional mature partner who is also interested in a commitment, which, of course, are things like he keeps reaching out, he keeps inviting you for a date. He wants to spend time with you. He wants to plan a future with you. Maybe he plans vacation with you. All of these things that are all good signs and that our brain tends to overlook. So look at the facts. That's number 2. And then the last thing is always when you have a worry about something, go to the worst case. Go there and ask yourself, what is my biggest fear here? What am I really, really scared of? And then ask yourself, but what would I do if that happened? Make peace with that worst case. And also, in some cases, you can challenge that. You can look at the facts again and ask yourself, do the facts point to the worst case becoming reality or not? Or is it all in my head? So it's really important to remember that even when we look at the facts and we can see there are really no signs that this person is about to leave me, and there are so many reasons why he's acting the way he is, and there are also a lot of facts pointing to him actually wanting to build a future with me. Even when we have all this, it's important to understand that there are no guarantees in love. Even if everything is going well, we never can control another human being. We can't force them to stay with us. And this is the reason why it's so good to have in the back of your mind and constantly remind yourself that you will be okay if the worst case happens. If he was to leave you, you will survive. You will, of course, go through grief and heartbreak and all that, but you will get out on the other side. You will create a new and happy life for yourself. And of course, when you are one day ready, you will meet a new partner. So if you are now thinking that you recognize some of this, you recognize the dating anxiety or the relationship anxiety, and you want help to manage that anxiety, to get rid of a large part of it, and knowing how to calm yourself, soothe yourself, and find different ways of thinking so you can stop all the worrying and start enjoying your relationship and your dating journey, then I would love to help you. You can book a free call with me on the link in the show notes or go to my Instagram account at Lærke the Love Coach. You also find a link there to book a 45 minutes consult call. I would love to talk to you. So this was all I had for you today, and I wish you a wonderful week and a lot of joyful dating. If you like what you're hearing on this podcast and you want to get support from a coach on your love journey, I invite you to book a free consult call with me. You will find the link in the show notes. And also, don't forget to subscribe, and I would love it if you would rate and review this podcast, and then you'll also help other women find it.